starts off with an augmented chord, and I'm like, dude,
Oh yeah, I guess it does.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this chord, and like I'm a guitar player. I'm looking at ultimateguitar.com, looking at diagrams. Like, this doesn't check out to what I'm hearing, and I don't think I'm gonna get any closer by doing the math here. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's just hop right into it. Andy
right.
Smith, what's going on, brother?
Oh man, it's summer. I'm busy, as is every musician right now. All right, it's good. It's hot. It's really freaking hot outside.
And the joy of that is now I can feel like an athlete for doing the same shit I do the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't get a sweat in like that, I don't respect what's going on with my body.
Yeah, that's your workout, right? You can skip the gym because you've loaded 50 million pounds of gear into a venue and you sweat out 2 gallons of sweat.
And then the first thing the venue does is go like, you want a cocktail? And I'm like, dude, I just lost most of my water weight. Like, I'm supposed to be 90% water. Right now I'm sitting like 15%. Okay, I'm mainly like body hair at this point. It's pretty gross, to be honest with you.
Yeah, let me just dehydrate myself as fast as I can.
Yeah, dude. Well, I think there's a side of this, like, I just had my first like long outdoor gig the other day. It's like when you're outdoors and you're singing and you're really getting into it, you don't realize the state you're gonna be in by the end of that show.
No.
But there is something to the hallucinogenic state that you get into when you're playing like that, and you suffer for the art, man.
Yeah, you don't feel it until about 20 minutes after the show, and then it's just like, oh wow. I think I need to sit down.
I think I need to stop loading out for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here today, man. For those of you that don't know Mr. Andy Smith, the most recent addition to my world, but how many groups in Cincinnati are you playing in right now? 15?
I'm probably not quite that many. I've got my group, Hydrophonics. We've been around for coming on 4 years now.
And were you part of the inception of that, or just part of the initial group?
Yeah, so it was my idea along with my buddy Dan Nail, who plays saxophone. I play organ in that group. It's like an organ quartet. It came out of my love for like Soul Live and Lettuce and Corey Henry and these sort of funk and soul organ groups, and it's kind of been a long-term dream of mine. My buddy Dan and I tried to start something in college that was in that direction, but it didn't work out. I was in Nashville for a while, moved back here, and as soon as I moved back, I hit him up because he had just gotten his master's and come back. I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's start this thing.
How does Dan Nail not have a band called Nail Dan? I mean, I'm a little offended, to be honest. We're looking directly at this thing, and the cosmos is calling for it.
I'll have to pass that one on to him.
So, and I don't really put Lettuce and Corey Henry in any similar category. There's a jam-ish quality, but what makes Corey Henry not a jam band? I guess I never thought about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess, they're coming from two different traditions. Obviously, Corey, like growing up in church, being a church musician, but of course he went the jazz route too. I mean, he just does everything. I guess what makes them feel similar to me is just their like instrumentation. When like Corey Henry and the Funk Apostles, I saw them a couple times. They're like both 6-piece, 8-piece funk bands or whatever. And a lot of the music they play has like a lot of overlap. Maybe for me it's personal too. It's like the way I feel when I listen to that stuff is the same. You can't sit still and listen to either one of those groups play.
And you're depriving yourself when you are.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think as it relates to your playing, like the danceability of an organ is a very foreign thing to the texture of the instrument. Like learning how to be percussive on that thing, and to any time that you're leaning into your right hand when you're trying to make that rhythm bounce, like you are trying to teach the audience how to move with this thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's piano. We think of like piano as a percussion instrument. That's what it is, right? But yeah, organ is like, when you first play it, I kind of tell people if I'm teaching them, it's like, okay, first thing you got to be comfortable with is just holding down notes and chords, because a lot of times that's what you get asked to do on organ. You're in the background, you're just holding chords. But in this context, in like a groove context, it is a lot about like feel and how to create that feel on the instrument, and it can be pretty subtle. It has a lot to do with kind of knocking some notes with your offhands when you're not playing, almost like a drummer. Yeah, feeling it like a drummer.
Yeah, and when you're going for those kind of like like felt but not really heard notes? Or are you picking things that are intentionally in the key, out of the key, whatever is kind of
It's
applicable?
a percussion instrument at that point. You smack whatever.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, a lot of times I'm playing. You might be playing a melody with like these 3 fingers, and I'm just knocking whatever with my thumb, and that's your like that because when you play organ, you know, there is no dynamics, there's no hammer. It's like a trigger, right? So like as soon as the key goes down a certain way, that note is triggered, and it's triggered at the same volume as it always is. You know, the volume pedal affects that. And so the only way to really get like a specific sort of feel out of the instrument is to sort of like finesse these other notes that you're not kind of playing. And you hear good organ players are great at this. Joey DeFrancesco was great at this, especially because swing or playing a shuffle, you have to do that too, right? If you want that and a lot of that bass line stuff, you've got to play 2 notes, not just one.
Yeah. Well, what was it like to learn to be a bass player in like an organ trio setting and then start to still be percussive? Like, to hear you say I'm playing the melody with these 3 fingers, I find disgusting. As a guitar player, I'm like, nah, baby, these are the rock.
Yeah.
This is the chef's kiss. This is some nonsense over here. So to learn that dexterity, did that take years of practice, or was that the first way you learned the organ?
So one thing that helped a lot was just the classical piano background. As much as I maybe didn't like it when I was a kid, having to play scales and Hanon exercises and, you know, learn Bach and stuff like that, kind of the skill set was like already there, but it's totally, the organ is a different instrument. Anybody that tells you differently is lying to you. It's different than piano. And so when I first got like an organ, I think it was, in college, but I had started learning to walk bass lines before that, because I was anticipating like, okay, I'm saving up, I'm going to get this thing. So I better learn how to walk bass lines. So there was like 2 summers where all I did was work out of like bass books. I would buy these bass books and just like, okay, how do you walk bass lines? How should it feel? I would listen to, you know, like the Oscar Peterson trio, listen to Ray Brown, like what does he sound like? And then you just take your left hand and you just patterns forever and ever until you can start to kind of get your right hand with it.
Yeah. Dude, this is classless, but Oscar Peterson was like it was the music I would put on for dinners at weddings.
There
Like
you go.
I knew nothing about Oscar Peterson. So I start just putting this on, and I'll be over there eating the same half-ass salad that you get at the first 50 weddings of the year.
Yeah.
And there'd be moments where I think I'd almost bite through my molar thinking about like how nasty something was. But I'd never listened to it, you know? I'd been depriving myself. And I was like, this shit is crazy.
Oh, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Well, and I think there's so many of us are missing out on the ways that like jazz is a pop music, you know, to enjoy the tastefulness of it rather than letting it be watered down and tainted by academia. You know, it's like, no, this is something that you can love, man. If you go see live jazz, it has fucking grit that a punk show does. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, if it's good, it does.
Yeah. But one question for you. That was a weird side tangent, but I can't hold myself back. So many kids are being exposed to their first instrument by their parents giving them a homework assignment. How do you think it's best to walk kids into a place where the instrument can be a discipline and a pleasure at the times where you need it?
Asking the tough questions.
It's a scary question.
It is a scary. So I'm a teacher, right? I have, 20 plus students, sometimes more. That is a really hard balance to strike. Not only for parents, but for teachers too. Because when you are trying to get someone who's young invested in an instrument, you do have to have, they have to have fun while they're doing it, but they have to be getting somewhere. So there has to be this like element of discipline too. Because if they're not disciplined, if they're not like practicing, they're not going to get anywhere. They're not going to feel good about it. They're not going to want to play outside of just you telling them what to practice. My teacher was great about this because she would, from a very early age, when I first started learning how to play, I would like write my own songs, and they would be just like riffs or whatever, mostly like bluesy riffs and stuff. And so she kind of caught on to that early, and she would make me, I would still work through the Faber books like everybody does, or through, classical pieces and scales. I still had to do all that, but there was always part of the lesson where she would help me improvise or like play something and be like, okay, now make something up. And she would try to foster like both sides of the coin, right? Here's the stuff I can tell you want to do. Here's the stuff you have to do if you want the foundation to be able to do the stuff you want to do. So I try to explain it to my students like that. And I think for parents, it's important to like take your kids to see live music. Show them that it can be cool to like play an instrument and be on stage with other people. And it's not just about sitting in front of it practicing, sitting at a piano in front of a music stand, you know, playing Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not really all that fun most of the time. You got to put them in a situation where they're like anticipating the day where they can get on stage with their friends and play.
Yeah. When was the first time you wrote something that had like personal staying power? Something that you kept coming back to and wanting to play for yourself, for other people, whatever.
This is going to sound funny, but pretty recently actually. As far as like, yeah, I'd written music with groups and stuff before, like with Hydrophonics. We wrote all that stuff collaboratively, but you know, we would each bring in some ideas. But I started writing like songs, you know, with lyrics and everything pretty recently. I'd been trying for a long time, but I've got like 5 or 6 in the vault now that I'm like, I think this is really, really good.
Like singer-songwriter-esque?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you have to come out and play the Songwriters Night at some point.
I would love to. I'm ready. I finally got the stuff for it. But yeah, it like, I was never really a singer until I started working a church gig and I had to sing every Sunday. And that kind of turned me into one. And then, it was like, well, I guess I should try to use this or start writing my own songs. But yeah, like now I've got songs where if I've got time, you know, before a choir rehearsal or something, I'm sitting down, like I did this last night, like, oh, I'll dust this original off and play it and make sure I'm ready in case the moment arises when I've got to play it for people.
Yeah. But even as a kid, you were writing ideas and whatnot. Did any of those last, or were they kind of like fleeting moments of like, this felt like it was mine and now I'm on to the next?
I think it was more like that. It was instrumental stuff. It was just like little, I don't know, just jam ideas, you know, or stuff that I would write. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I wrote one called Taking Out the Trash, and it was like some bluesy little thing. I can't remember it now, though. I was probably 9 or something when I wrote it. But I think I might have actually got the staff paper out and wrote it down and put the title down and stuff. But yeah, and then I would just kind of come up with stuff that maybe I'd play with a group, and it's just some idea. But none of them ever stuck around very long until really like I started playing with Hydrophonics. I wrote some stuff in college. Wrote like an instrumental called Sound of Home or something that I played on my recital that I liked, and I can still remember that. I've still got the sheet music for that, but I don't really play it out much. So I guess like with original stuff, I've always been searching for, you know, those couple songs that were going to be like, okay, now I feel like I'm figuring out my voice and what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to a guy the other day at one of my bar gigs, and one of the underlying like principles in my life right now is my number one's Prince. I look at all my Prince memorabilia, and I think of how disgusted my hero would be if I was making my living on the back of his catalog.
Yeah.
And I put that in this context of your heroes have called you to reciprocate, not imitate. You going out and trying to learn their solos note for note has nothing to do with you unless you're willing to take that and build upon it.
Yeah.
You know, just stand upon the shoulders of giants in that way. And in having this conversation with this guy who's just starting to play acoustic guitar, my first thought was to tell him, like, go learn your favorite songs and then write your songs on top of them.
Yeah.
Just strike the lyric.
Yep.
Because there's a sense of ownership and arrival there that you're not going to get by learning your 50th cover tune. And so I'm so glad you said that with, like, when you're starting to learn the instrument, learn how it relates to you, not how you relate to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to have a relationship with it in a way that, like, like, I don't know. I think back to when I was a kid, when I would get home from school, like, I wanted to go home and play the piano. I wanted to get done with practicing what my teacher assigned me so that I could mess around on it. Like, there was a curiosity there that, and you can tell, you know, I've taught enough kids that, like, you can tell the ones that have that and the ones that don't, because they'll come in and then after the lesson's over, they'll go, can I show you something? I wrote something. Can I show you something? And they'll, like, play this thing, and like, those are my favorite moments of all time. It's like, okay, you've got that thing that I had that all my friends had, that we wanted to jam in the basement with our friends and write songs. Like, okay, foster that. Like, keep doing that. Keep writing songs. Spend your time doing that, because that's what's going to make you a musician.
Yeah. Have you ever been shocked by something that a student wrote?
Yeah, actually, I have one student. His name is Santiago, and he's one of my last students on Monday. So like, I'm always really, really tired. But he'll come in and we'll go through the lesson. He's great. He practices. He does classical stuff. I'm teaching him jazz. But at the end of the lesson, he'll always like pull something out. And one time he's like, I'm writing an arrangement of Sir Duke for a jazz band. And he's like, I don't know, 12, 13. I'm like, that's crazy, man. And he's got this little watch, and he turns the volume up on the watch and holds it up to my ear. And it's like, here, listen to it. And it sounds really good. And he's got like all the horn parts written out. Like, man, this is incredible. I wasn't doing anything like this when I was a kid. Like, keep doing it. I was blown away.
Dude, that's awesome.
Okay.
And those are things that, like, there's many days where even when I feel like I'm doing my best, I can still feel defeated by the circumstances where my art exists.
Yeah.
But then when I go to the songwriter's night, if someone blows my mind doing the thing that I respect and want to do the most, my cup is full. I'm overflowing with joy. So those moments where it's like I'm at the end of a Monday, I've played Mary Had a Little Lamb in all 12 keys.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it went well in any of them. And then Santiago comes in and just crushes Sir Duke. It's like, we're good again.
Yeah,
I'll see you on Tuesday.
That's all I needed. That made my whole day. That's all I needed, man. Yeah, it is like, it gives you hope, all right? Because a lot of times, yeah, I don't always see that in young people. I think it's more rare, maybe, in young people, that curiosity of trying to just do something with your hands or with your imagination.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been said to death, but our society is a lot of instant gratification, and you're stimulated and things are thrown at you. You don't have to use your imagination so much anymore. And in order to do that kind of thing that he's doing, you got to dedicate like hours of sitting down and just trying stuff. And most people just don't have that quality. So when I see it in a young musician, it's like, oh, we need more of that, man. Keep doing it. Get your friends involved. Like, spread the word.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's so funny you say that, because I sent I sent my sister a picture of myself in the 4th grade the other day, where on picture day I brought my guitar and I want to take a picture with that, and she was like, "How silly would this be if it didn't turn out to be your career and your one and only?"
Yeah, right.
And I was like, I absolutely get what you're saying. But how many of us waste our childhood on things that will never come to fruition as a meaningful venture? How lucky are we to have found this as young people and to develop this language, this love language between friends, where on a Thursday night after teaching all day or doing whatever you did to pay the bills, you go to a gig where it's like, I am just here to let loose with my friends.
Yeah.
And we exist in the air around us, and then by the time you open the door, it's all gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes you can't even tell me that that's worth it. I just feel like it is.
Yeah, it's impossible to explain to somebody. But I think it's the reason that like people that aren't musicians, they'll say, "Oh, you're so lucky." They'll give you that, "Oh, you're so lucky to do that." And then the first thing, at least in my mind, is I start listing all the reasons why that's not true. It's like, I have no money, I work 24/7. All this stuff. Like, I don't get paid for all the hours I sit in my hot office upstairs learning 45 tunes or whatever. But that is what they're seeing on stage. They're seeing like how, like when Hydrophonics plays together, it's like our faces are lit up the whole time. We're smiling at each other. We're having a blast. And that's what they see, and that's what they're talking about. And it's also probably the easiest thing for us to forget about is how, like, that whatever 2 hours, right, is worth all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just that moment's only there for a little bit, then it goes away. Then you got to load your shit out the front door,
Yeah. But I feel like it is hard to explain, and I think so many kids are brought up with the ideal of sports being the most accessible way to like interact with people in that way. Like we had our first meeting just to talk about, you coming in and playing with the band a little bit. And that comes from a strange Instagram interaction, just being like, this guy slams, and I'm in a situation where I need another keyboard player. so we can hang out for a couple of hours and talk about things. But in the back of my head, it's the equivalent of be like, dude, I can't wait to pass to this guy in the corner and watch him get a bucket on a guy who has no idea it's coming.
Yeah.
Or just go watch him yam on somebody. It's like,
Yeah.
that's an excitement and a joy that people don't understand until you pass it to your buddy and he dunks it on someone. You know, some unsuspecting motherfucker that had no idea that his mom's going to have to pick him up because he just got his lunch money taken from him. You know, that's how it feels to throw a buddy a solo and be like, but dude, we're going to modulate up our half step.
Right.
And those things like I feel especially excited at this point in my musical career because of the companionship that's around me. And the guys I've been playing with for over a decade and the new folks that are coming into my life, because there's a shape shift in quality to how the songs exist. Again, like, if you can be young enough to understand what it's like to reciprocate the inspiration of the music. Now you built this little room. I always say it's like it's 4 walls. We put some decorations up. That is the song. The arrangement is how you can fit into that space. Yeah. Do you know how fun it is to let 30 people into that room and be like, let's have a little house party and see what happens? And yeah, shit's gonna get broken. You know? Right. It may not be able to take this. But the joy of flying like that, like it's also like when you go to the county fair and they're the planes flying within feet of each other. It's like, this shit's dangerous, dog. Yeah. And we have no money.
No, we have no money. It's funny you say that. That's a great. I've never thought of it that way. That's a great way to think about songs and the way that they change and evolve. Because with our band, it's the same thing. It's like we had these songs, we recorded them one way. You go hear us play them now. They're not like we recorded them, and it's the same 4 guys. Yeah. But they develop in a way that's completely different. And other people come and sit in, and then it's like, oh, that's kind of cool if we did it like this, you know. And it just starts to change and take on a life of its own.
Totally. Like the couch used to be over there. Or, dude, we redid the bathroom. Can you believe that? It's like everything about this is so optional. Yeah. And for songs to have some surprise like that, like that's why I like the idea of practicing with a click and playing without it. You know, these places where like we're gonna rigidly define the sections and the opportunities that we think we have. And the moment that you have an idea that feels unsuited for that, let's put a square peg in a round hole, dude.
Let's just do it.
Exactly. You know, Nick Meehan is really brilliant about that because the drummers are the guys that are most bound by what is the current sense of the song.
That's true.
So if they can flip it on its head, I mean, it's a disturbing moment for the rest of us. But if we can go with it, man, like that's so cool.
Well, that's what makes it fun to play the same songs. Like, you know, you think about how many gigs you played the same song, like especially if it's original music. Like we've only got 1 record out. We've got like a couple more originals than what's on that record, but that's it. And so we end up playing those songs a million times. And Isaiah is great about this too. Isaiah Cook, he will just go off on a completely different feel or idea. He might go double time. He might go half time. It might turn into like a shout. You don't know what he's gonna do, but whatever he does, it's the willingness of everybody else to go, yeah, all right, man, let's do this.
Yes.
And that's what, like, the unpredictability of it. You set up, you know, the set list might be pretty similar or the same as the last time you played, but those songs aren't going to sound the same.
Yeah. Well, I think that's been such an interesting experience for me as a band leader. Is, you know, my drummer is the back of my head. It is the thing that the rest of the band sees and understands and runs with. Yeah. And it's like I can do a lot of things to get people on board, but if me and that person aren't absolutely in one place, then there's nothing for the audience to receive. Yep. You know? And Nick Hack was one of my closest friends and an amazing drummer, and really did great things for my understanding of that relationship. Because a lot of times it did feel like, okay, so I'm going to go stand out on the wing of the plane and dance like a monkey to these people, okay? And I need you to be fucking level for me, dude. Yeah. Because there's times where people go to flip it, and it's like, well, now I'm out here looking like an idiot, you know? Yeah. So that interaction between bandmates, if you're going there, we're going there. Yeah. In an absolute sense. Yes. But if I'm begging you not to go there, please, for the love of God, don't fucking do it right now, man. I really want to hear, you know, the organ is so interesting to me because the organ and the harmonies of the Beach Boys have this shape-shifting quality. You know, they're like the original synth to me.
Yeah.
It's the first time you can ever hold a note and sculpt it to fit better, to make room in the mix. What was it like to feel that expression for the first time and then to learn how it actually applies?
So, yeah, I think it is. That's a great way of thinking about it. When I first heard it is when it captured my attention. When I first heard like Corey Henry, especially Corey Henry, because his harmony is unbelievable, and it's even great musicians are in awe at what he does. And yeah, the way he can take it like some really simple tune, like a hymn or something, and then make it sound like something you've never heard before on the organ, and it's like got all this, this like swirling, whirling stuff under the same melody you've heard a million times. How can it make you not want to play it, right? It's like you hear that and it's like, oh, I want to do that. Why don't I do that? Then you get the instrument, get your hands on it, it's like, oh wow, he's doing a lot of things at once. Like you realize, okay, my right foot's got to do this, both hands got to do this, I got to change all the drawbars, and then you kind of like, at first at least, it's a little deflating because it's like, oh, this is a monumental task, and then he's playing the pedals too. But the more you stick with it, the more you kind of find that a lot of it does translate from piano or synth if you've played a lot of synth. It's like learning that new instrument, right? It's learning that how each one of those things that you learned on the other instrument translates, but it is a translation. It's not verbatim, right? So you've got to really find, for me, it was like holding notes and moving at the same time. It's like the way that you use your fingers is very different. On piano, it's almost like, if you're playing like a chorale on piano, where all the voices move together, it's kind of like that on organ, except you don't have any sustain, so it's got to be this like spidery sort of thing.
Like that crawling motion. It's gross to watch you do that with your hands. I feel like I'm watching someone else get a massage at the mall, and I'm thinking like, that looks nice, but it's not nice to watch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yep, that's funny.
No, that's disgusting. What's wrong with you? What did the drawbars actually do?
What do they do?
Yeah.
Well, they are, boy, I hope there's no organ aficionados watching. They're going to pick me apart.
This isn't the most watched program, I'll tell you that. The people that do watch have my heart forever, but I wouldn't say many of them are organ aficionados.
Good. So they're going to get a lesson. So they're like waves, right? You brought up a synthesizer. An organ is like really very much a synthesizer. In fact, the easiest thing to model about an organ is actually the drawbars. The Leslie is why like keyboards don't sound good, because they can't model the Leslie. Anyway, the drawbars are octaves and fifths, and there's some thirds in there. I don't have them memorized in sequence, but actually like my favorite thing to do with like a first time organ player is like hold a middle C or something and then just start pulling drawbars out and say, okay, the first one is C. Right, okay, the second one is G, actually. You can hear it. It's a G, but it's a harmonic, and then the third one's another C, right? And then the fourth one is, I think, maybe another C, and then another G, and then there's an E in there somewhere. And so it's actually all these harmonics that stack over the note, which is why you hear that, like, the more drawbars you pull out, the thicker it sounds. You might play one note, but that one note is now this, like, massive thing if you pull all the drawbars out, because you're hearing all the harmonics.
Interesting. So you're like, when you have a drawbar at full extension, is it as loud as the primary note?
So the primary note is the first, essentially the first drawbar. Like you can hold a C, and if you pull a certain drawbar, it'll play a G, right? If that's the only drawbar you pull out. So yeah, all the way, it is like a volume thing, right? At that point, like it's 1 to 8 or 0 to 8, I guess. 0's all the way in. If you pull it all the way out, right? That's 8. And that effectively is volume, and so that's like you're sort of setting the volume of the harmonics when you do it. Usually, I'm not always messing with the drawbars. You kind of have your settings, just like you have like a pedal board, and you have kind of okay, this is like basically what I use for rhythm. This is basically what I use for my solo. Yeah. Drawbars are a lot like that.
Well, and I guess one thing that's never occurred to me, it's very similar, like harmonic saturation for a guitar player with the distortion pedal. For folks at home, it's like the more that you crank the gain and distortion, the more you get these artifacts that are just the note interacting with the space. So, on the wrong stage, if the bass player hits a low B, that thing takes off because it has harmonic resonance.
Yep.
So to watch guys, I guess I've never realized that you could take the primary note out of there and just have this harmonic kind of loosely sitting in the back.
Yep.
How much of that crunch that's kind of applied by how thick that is play into your own style versus just like, it's more of a land and apply and then push off and move again.
So a lot of like organ, like learning the organ is actually just learning what the drawbars sound like in various positions. And kind of coming up with, I always encourage people like come up with your own thing, come up with your own sets of sounds. There's some that like, okay, everybody use like the first 4 out is like Jimmy Smith. All right. That's like, everybody knows that if they play organ. But then from there, it's like, okay, if you want that really ghosty sounding stuff, then it's some of the high ones and some of the low ones. And so you almost like store these in your memory. I actually used to write these down. I used to find when I was first learning, I would like just for hours, like hold a chord and mess with the drawbars. And then I find something like, oh, that's really unique and interesting. Let me write that down. And then you would write, it looks like a code, but it's like all these numbers in a row. And you write it out and then you've got it. Like you memorize it after you do it a certain amount of time, because in real time, like you're playing a song, I might have one beat to get that setting there for the next part or whatever.
Yeah.
So I am always kind of thinking ahead just a little bit to like a texture change or something. Hey, we're going to the bridge. I need to push in 6 drawbars and pull these 2 out or whatever. And then for the solos, I always tell people like, don't be afraid to pull a bunch of drawbars out because you got to cut through. Sometimes I get yelled at for playing too loud, but hey, there's not very many keys players can brag about that. So.
Yeah, dude. I mean, have a good sound engineer. Yeah. Well, and it almost is so similar to a good analog sound engineer, which like, I'm starting to feel this way more and more. Where would I love to be able to take the right guy on the road who knows my show, right girl, guy, just because that's an instrument.
Yep.
That is the last instrument that decides how the audience receives you.
Yeah.
And these days you'll watch a NAMM video where a guy's like, he's a classic studio engineer and he's his foot up on the board and he's pushing that thing, dude. He looks so happy. Yeah. And you're like, oh, he's playing that thing.
Yeah, it's an instrument. Yeah.
And it's so similar to watching a guy grab 4 bars and hold it and just pull so slow. And it's weird that I guess I would never imagine that you would use that to apply volume and to apply cut because you're adding so much information that now kind of clouds what the number one is,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all about texture. It's all about texture. And that's how you learn to fit in with a band too. Like I've played a lot of different genres on organ. Like I've played a lot of country and southern rock. When I was living in Nashville, I was in some bands where I played primarily organ. And that's very different than what I do when I play jazz or funk or something, because you're way more in the background there. You are like a pad, essentially, like a synth. And so you've got to find all these textures that like don't get in the way of all the chuggy guitars and stuff. You don't have that mid-range anymore, so you've got to operate in the high end. So that actually completely changes like your drawbar settings, the octave you play in, even the amount of notes you're going to play at once. All the voicings you're going to use are different. And so kind of doing that, being in different genres, I think really helped me to figure out like what textures are available on the instrument and then which work in what context. Because that's the difference between someone who sounds like an organ player, someone who sounds like a keyboard player that plays organ, pushes the organ button every once in a while. Is the organ player has been through all that and they know how the instrument, really fits in all these different contexts.
Yeah. So did you touch on organ before you moved into any synth work?
No, actually, I did some synth stuff first. I was never a synth, like an analog synthesis nerd, but I did have I guess these are still around, a King Korg, in college, and I did some, pop and funk band stuff where I did a bunch of crazy synth bass or whatever, synth leads and stuff. So I did a lot of synth, right before I got my organ. I was playing a lot of synth.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it was never, I never got in the depth of like learning how the synth the insides, the guts of the synth really work like I did the organ. That one, for whatever reason, the organ was more approachable for me. It seemed like there was less math involved, which was nice because I'm really bad at math.
Well, I think some people like the visual learning of the drawbars and how that works shape, and some people like the idea of a sine wave versus a sawtooth wave or whatever those things are. And boys, it's so much easier just to be a guitar player and just you hit a button. I mean, it's the most it's some monkey mashing, dude. I mean, we're simple. But I've always admired guys that are really good at it. When someone's looking to move from piano into these worlds of sculptable sounds, is there any advice you would give for how to start to anticipate the changes in your playing?
Yeah. So on piano, you have to usually play a lot more notes than you have to on basically any other keyboard instrument because it's a percussion instrument, right? A drummer plays more notes than anybody in a gig, right? They hit things more times than anybody. Piano is the same way, right? You know, on a blues gig, think about like a blues pianist, right? All that boogie woogie stuff, like how many notes he's playing. I mean, I play like a blues gig on piano. My hands are dead after a 3-hour blues gig on piano. Organ and synth, or even like if you're playing like string parts and stuff, a lot of people will take that same like activity level and apply it to those things, especially organ. You can always tell when a piano player's playing organ that hasn't played organ because they're playing a lot of notes just like piano. It's like you have to it's more about the sculpting of the sound. It's more about the way that the instrument sounds and the way that it's kind of the way that it's felt more than heard almost. And so you really got to have a lot of restraint. You've got to have a ton of restraint on those instruments, and you've got to pick your spots a lot better and be content with, you know, sometimes organ, you just hold that one note, man. That's all it needs. It's like the root way up high, and sometimes you can sit there for about 2 minutes like that. And if you're content with that, then you can be an organ player.
There's some of that funk one work where it's just like, dude, I'm just gonna hold this and I'm just gonna apply grimace, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's taken me over 15 years of only playing to try to learn how to play less.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because I'm playing so many solo gigs or a failure to listen at a better level, but it almost seems like it's the motion of zooming out from your playing. Yeah. And to be that comfortable with the material that you can listen to everybody. Not listen to others, listen to everybody, yourself included. Yep. Because I feel like that's a different step, too. To listen to other people, it's easy when the soloist steps up
right.
and you're learning how to comp for the first time. I'm still learning how to comp better, but learning how to include yourself in the macro and then to figure out how to make the minute changes that really amplify the thing.
Yeah, it's like it's a shift of the mindset. When we're like learning, when we're young, especially when we're discovering, and like when you get your chops together, I'm thinking like, I don't know, for me that was like kind of high school when I started playing a lot of gigs with older musicians, and I was taking music really seriously. You start to get all these chops, and it's like the classic young man's disease of just like you want to play everything you know every single time you step up on stage. And that actually hangs around for way longer than you think it does, because you can kid yourself and go, oh, yeah, I'm not like that anymore. And you can hear that in other people and go, oh, he's just playing too much, you know. You record yourself and go listen back. You're probably doing it too, because I know I am even still. But it is like it's something I've been trying constantly to get better at, is listen to the whole thing. Listen to the whole song, everything everybody's playing. Like, where does... if it wasn't you playing the instrument, what would you hear? What would fit, you know? And if you don't hear it, if it doesn't fit in this kind of more objective view of the song, the whole view of the song, then it probably doesn't need to be there. And you don't need to play it just because it sounds cool. You know, it is a constant journey as a musician trying to do that.
Well, that's really well said. I think it's the production world that really changed what I thought was a bird's eye view. Again, like I felt like I could listen to others, but I couldn't listen to the cumulative of all of us. Yeah. And so going in those contexts where I'm like, oh my God, there doesn't need to be guitar in the verse.
Right. Yeah.
It's taking me to a point on stage where I'm like, I can walk off during a guy's solo.
Yep.
I can walk off for the first 16 and come back for the second 16, and I've done the right thing.
Yep. Yep.
And there's so many musical lessons that I think apply to so much of life, where it's like, to remove myself is not to miss out.
Yeah.
To remove myself is to opt in at a later date when it's more essential.
Yeah.
And it's such a microcosm for how we fit in what we think is everything, but it is just our little life.
Yeah.
Our little short life.
A guy that I learned a lot from in this regard is Carlos Ortiz, a guitar player here in town. And there was a while there where we had like a duo residency playing jazz. And we would play like once, twice, sometimes 3 times a month. And these are like 4-hour gigs, so they're long. You play like a lot of tunes, you play a lot of notes. He used to joke, if we got paid by the note, we would be rich. But he is a freak of nature on guitar. He could probably play that 4-hour gig solo, and it would sound probably better than if I was there. But he, like, playing with him would really show me like how little you can do and still make it beautiful. He was so patient. When he develops an idea, a solo, even just comping, you know, he might do nothing but just kind of play a chord every once in a while and let you have the rest of it. And he was so patient that it kind of highlighted when I was not being patient. For those first like couple gigs we played together, I was like, oh man, like he would have to tell me like, okay, but like chill out on this one, like you don't have to do so much. Doing that for, I think we did it for like a year, a little over a year. I felt myself getting better, and it was not in a way that I was like learning. I just like my chops weren't getting like crazy or anything like that. I wasn't like thinking about music in a completely different way. I was just developing like more restraint and a better ability to like play with another chord instrument, because that's often really, really difficult if you're not on the same page, if you're not really listening. And he really taught me how to like listen and be patient and pick your spots.
Yeah. We're talking about the same Carlos, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
I always call him by his former last name.
Carlos Vargas?
Yes. Carlos. When I was in high school, I was a sophomore in high school, and Carlos was the student teacher for this guitar class. And most of these folks are learning for their second year.
Yeah.
And I've been playing my whole life up to there. And so Carlos was really good to me and just showing me some better chord voicings and talking to me about like some more involved aspects of the instrument. But even more important to me than that was me and Carlos played gigs together at that point.
Yeah.
Like it was like by the middle of my junior year, I was like, dude, I have these Thursday gigs I would love for you to come play on.
Oh, that's cool.
And so Carlos would drag his JC 120 up a flight of stairs.
Oh, man.
The biggest amp possible.
Yeah, right.
And he plays so patient.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing that I was talking to Chris Keith about this, and so many guys that are in my band, that sometimes you know what people are capable of playing, and it's intimidating.
Yeah.
But when you know how capable someone is and they choose to play less, what a love language.
Oh, I know.
To leave space for you to respond.
Yep.
To exist happily in silence together.
Yeah.
Is a point of affirmation that I don't think I've truly appreciated up until this point in my life. And some guys do it so well, and you realize the beautiful discomfort in hanging on something and waiting for it to develop and letting it pull apart the fabric of your brain, man.
It takes a lot of trust. It's really a trust thing, because you both have to be invested in playing that way, and a lot of people aren't. You both have to decide that the music is more important than what either one of you is doing. But it is like, it's this, and it's like trust in any friendship too. It's like at first you don't know each other that well, and so you wouldn't, trust a guy with a bunch of your money or something, like some like dire situation. You wouldn't just trust the first guy you met yesterday. But the more you play with them, the more that trust develops, and then it becomes like, hey man, I can just like give you this whole section, and I know where you're gonna go. or even if I don't, I trust where you're gonna go and I'll follow you.
Yeah. There's moments that without better term for it, it's like, whereas a band leader, I feel like I'm blue balling a guy, where I'm like, I'm gonna throw you a section, and I'm gonna call you off of it, whether I know you're at the peak of your solo or you're not. It just felt natural to me to say, that's enough for them for now. Let's go, because I'm gonna come back to you later on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many times where I've stepped on somebody's toes in that. And that's such a hard read, too. Mm-hmm. And there's so much guilt associated with that. I think that's one of the things that people don't realize about bands is the guilty feelings of what if.
Yep.
You know?
It is. It's like being it's a family. It's like you end up hurting each other, whether you want to or not. You end up doing it. But it's how you come through the other side of that defines whether or not it's a band worth being in. It's impossible to try to make music at a high level and not break a few eggs. But yeah, again, if everybody wants it enough, if everybody's on the same page and they want the same thing, then that won't matter. And if you're friends, then it won't matter. You work through those things and you figure it out. But now on stage, this just happened last weekend. I just messed up the form of a song. We were supposed to go around twice, and I thought it was maybe the second time, and so I ended up cutting my buddy Dan off on his solo, and he was like halfway through. He was getting ready to really lay into it, and he just kind of turned around and looked at me like, really? But it was a smile. It wasn't like, oh, dude, what the fuck? It was just like, oh, okay, fine. And then, it was a moment. It was a joke, because it was like, oh, don't worry. On the next song, I'll let you do anything you want.
I think, that give and take. And I think also learning to speak to each other after the gig, before the gig, in the same way, where it's like, I'm going to leave space for you to say what you need to say.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try to read between the lines of what you put out there. Mm-hmm. Let's speak poignantly to each other and lovingly. Like, one of the other things I've really realized about soloing is so many of the folks in my life, yourself included, come from a background that says I've dedicated my life to learning not only the language, but how expression fits between people. How do I say something more effectively shorter than longer, or vice versa? It's like having extensive vocabulary in your playing to be able to lovingly go between dissonance and consonance in a way that not everyone will understand, but I can explain it to you simpler if I need to.
Yeah.
To not feel intimidated by that, to embrace people for what they are in that. You know? It's how they speak.
Yeah, exactly. Your voice. That's what people call it. That's what your voice on the instrument, right? And I think everybody's voice, when you first hear somebody new, even they're really good, when you first hear them solo, they're not going to hear things the way that you hear them. They're not going to play things the way that you play them. So there's going to be decisions that they make that you're like, really? But that's what makes them good. The more you listen to that and the more your ear goes like, what was that? The more you find like, oh wait, that's like your little genius that you have. Like that's your thing. That's the twist that you put on something that I would never do, and that's why I'm playing with you right there. You have to have a respect for everybody's unique voice and approach, and that's something I put a lot of time into, kind of consciously thinking about or consciously developing the way that I play and the way that I solo. And it's often maybe even a lot simpler than the people that I play with. And so sometimes it's more just like I hear somebody playing, I don't even know what that was, man. That was incredible. I don't know, especially Carlos and Dan, those guys can play some shit. And I got no idea. I can't follow you there, you know, but props.
But I think that relates really well to the idea of somebody's vocab. Like, sometimes I don't know what the word meant, but in context, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, right.
I just never heard that word before.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not going to stop you and ask you what that was, because I don't want you to understand that I have no idea what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, you just nod and go, yeah.
Jazz, dude. You ever step on an ant and wonder if it has an extensive jazz vocabulary that's been playing in the background?
No, I can't say I have.
The meteor strike might take us out, but it would never know your work. You know what I'm saying? The meteor is the toe of the gods. Okay, moving. Walk me through the thought process before you moved.
Before I moved to Nashville or before I moved back here?
Before we moved to Nashville.
Yeah, so I was graduating college. I got a jazz studies degree. It was an extremely useful degree. I'd highly recommend. No, I'm just kidding. Nobody, never do that. I don't care how good you are at jazz or how useful you think it's going to. Don't do it. Do something else.
I'm going to tag the department in that clip.
I
that
don't
was
care.
good.
Tag CCM, Scott Belk, whatever.
Yeah, I saw a Groupon that I can get a 2-for-1 on this. I got twins that play crazy sousaphone.
Yeah, jazz sousaphone. Good luck. No, so I'd gotten the world's most useful degree, and I had a buddy, Kieran Cronley, a buddy of mine that had moved to Nashville, is still down there. He's touring with a guy named Cassius Culpepper right now. They're doing some really cool stuff.
Awesome name.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Americana, like soul Americana. Anyway, so he plays bass for him now, but he was down there, and he kind of been bending my ear for a while. I came in, you should move down here. Like, there's lots of work. In fact, like, there's a gig I can get you right away. And I'm not a country music guy, but I did grow up listening to the Allman Brothers and like Creedence Clearwater Revival and Skynyrd and these kind of like southern rock bands, and I liked Marcus King and all, so I was like, okay, there's stuff down there that like I know that I will like. Let me just give it a shot. It was kind of like, I'm 22 years old. What do I have to lose? Nothing at all, right? I just go down there. Maybe I, end up on a great touring gig. And, I really didn't like a lot of the decisions I made in my life. Some of the best ones or the most interesting ones have been very spontaneous. And this was pretty spontaneous. A couple of my friends moved down there with me. Eric Shepard moved down there with me. So I had people that I knew, and I knew I wanted to take a crack, and I was like, well, it's easier to move here than L.A. or New York, so try Nashville first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get down there, and what's the contrast between what you thought it'd be versus what it was?
I don't know if I had any conception of what it would be like. It was simultaneously way more difficult than I thought it was going to be to like find the sort of music I wanted to play. But it was way easier just to get on gigs and start playing with different people than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to take me longer to break in to things. But I never really was able to play music that I loved down there. And that got old pretty fast. As someone who, like, the reason I do music is because of, blues and soul and funk and all this stuff that, like, I grew up listening to. These sounds, like, infected me from a young age. And then I went down there and it was kind of like in a way just getting away from all of that stuff. And I was playing stages, I was touring, I was like learning a lot about what it meant to be in a band and be like a supporting member of a band, or what it was like to, party 6 days in a week and still have to get up and play the next day.
You didn't get into this for the bags of cash and the love of beautiful strangers?
No. No, I don't know. I don't know what I got into it for.
Beautiful 4-hour increments of people deeply caring about your well-being. Come on, man.
But yeah, no, it was an experience, and I'm really glad that I did it. And I learned a lot about kind of the soft skills of music. Like, not so much my playing was not really challenged. I wasn't being asked to do anything very difficult down there. But it was like, I'm not going to name any names, but there were times where I'm 23 and I felt like the only adult in the room. And it was like, whoa, this is weird. How do I navigate this?
Yeah.
It puts you in social situations where you're like, whoa, shit, I wouldn't get this in Cincinnati. Like, I wouldn't be here.
What would you say is the biggest benefit of leaving? I know this isn't your home market, but is the market that you spent most of your time, of leaving your home market and being the new musician in town?
It's people get really excited about you when they hear you play. Especially if you're good. They go, oh, shit, this guy's, how old are you? I got a lot of that. How old are you? You're 23? Whoa, man. And it felt good. But then, I knew where I was coming from. I knew I had just spent 4 years practicing 6 hours a day or whatever, playing my instrument 6-8 hours a day. I knew that, like, I was going to probably come in here with a lot of chops and stuff. But I didn't know anything about how the industry worked, and the industry is the thing that is kind of different down there, right? It was like it was kind of being I wasn't a big fish here by any means, but being a medium-sized fish in a small pond to being a really tiny fish in a really big pond. And it's pretty humbling because you're just grateful to be there and to play and to gain the respect of some of these older musicians, get to do these pretty cool things. I got to hang out with Charlie Daniels shortly before he died. I got to sit down and talk to him. That's pretty cool, right? Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't take the leap and if I wasn't willing to kind of start over in a way, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting how much Nashville or LA or New York, they say those are 10-year towns.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's 10 years of working on your craft. I think it's 10 years to acclimating on how business is done there.
Yeah.
Whether it's the way the contracts work or handshake deals go down or how you get in that project and stay in that project. So walk me through the thought process of coming back.
So it was 2020. And I was in a band called the Desert City Ramblers, and we had a lot of momentum. We were pretty excited. We had some singles out; they were charting, and we had played a couple of gigs. We just started late 2019. We played a couple of gigs, and then COVID shut everything down. And it was like, fuck, what are we gonna do? I was lucky enough at that time to be on a retainer. It wasn't much, but I survived because most musicians, we had no work. It was all gone. No touring, no nothing. And, as things started to come back, like really gradually, it was clear that the music scene was not going to recover very quickly because you still couldn't put 2,000 people in a room or whatever. And so I felt very isolated at the time. It was like, okay, I'm not, like, the reason I moved down here was to do this job and to do this thing that I've dreamed about forever. Not only can I not do it, but I'm very far from my close friends and family. There's the future here doesn't look that great, or if it does, it's a long way off. And at that point, I was getting pretty fed up with just not being able to play the music I wanted to play. I wanted so bad just to start that funk band and to play with, people that were outside of the country world or that didn't, that wasn't their thing. Like, that's what I was looking for. And it was hard to find down there. I found it, but it was kind of an insulated scene, I would say. It's harder to break into. And I knew the people that were waiting for me back in Cincinnati. And I was like, man, I think I just really want to go home. It felt like home. It's funny that I say that because it's not where I'm from, but it was like, I want to go back there. And I want to take another crack at it because I'm not making any money here. I'm sitting around. If I'm not going to make any money, I may as well go back there and make no money and start this band and like hang out with the people I want to hang out with. Right. And then I started teaching, got into some other stuff when I came back here. So it was like a real pivot that I didn't think the whole thing through. It was just kind of a gut feeling where it was like, I'm not happy here. I need to go somewhere I'm happy. Even if it felt a little bit at the time like maybe I was giving up. It felt like a failure, because you move to like the big, music city and you don't like make it, whatever that means. And you decide to kind of go home, and there's countless stories of musicians doing that, right? And I was like, oh, shit, I guess I'm just one of those guys. So it was kind of like wrestling with that for a while until I got my feet under me here and realized, no, like I made the right decision. I feel that way now. Yeah.
Well, I think to make a career out of this is the 99th percentile of making it.
Yeah.
But then there's a 99th percentile of the 1%
yeah, right.
that are in Nashville doing that thing, and that's awesome. But to make a career out of it on your own terms, that features the compromises. Everyone at the top has compromises, and everyone at the bottom has compromises. And I think the great thing about a world being leveled in 2020 is people asking, what is life worth?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of spiritual to be had in that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of identity to sort through in that. There's a lot of purpose to sort through in that. And this is a path that does not clearly define purpose.
No.
And it certainly doesn't shroud it with comfort foods like healthcare and retirement and financial freedoms.
Yeah.
Things that feel great, but you can wake up at 65 and say, well, what the fuck was that?
What did I do?
Yeah. What did I do with that?
Yeah.
Now, I think the compromise, not the compromise, the solution to purpose for 99% of human beings is to be parents.
Yeah, family. Yeah.
Yeah. To bring about children that learn from your mistakes, that stand on your shoulders of success and go out and populate the world with the most hopeful version of what you could ever know. That is one of the most accessible missions of a human life to be had.
Yeah.
And then what you and I do, where at this point in time, you don't have kids, right?
No.
Yeah, I don't right now either. I hope to embark on that down the road. But for right now, I have this odd version of companionship that I give to people in the forms of a soundtrack to the life that can be passively and actively consumed. And you can take what you want of it. You can insert it in your life how you want it to. And boy, is it the coolest thing I could ever imagine doing with my time.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It is like, yeah, man, it's a really weird thing that we do. We go up on stage and we actually give ourselves away in a, parents do this too. When you have kids, your whole life is now given to them, right? We give ourselves away like a little piece at a time, but over and over and over and over in service to something that doesn't necessarily thank us or give anything back. It's in service to something we can't see or touch, but we can hear it and we can feel it. Like being in that room where everybody's connected, right? You're playing and the crowd is on their feet and they're taking everything that you're giving to them or giving it right back to you. Like there's for these like moments, right? And you're just kind of chasing that feeling the whole time. It's like over and over and over. And that's why it can be pretty dangerous for musicians, because it's almost like a drug. You're just chasing it and you're chasing the next high.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to a weird thought about the in-ears, where it's like,
oh yeah,
the thing I really like about the in-ears is you and I now live in two separate but congruent boxes, where I hear what I need to hear, you hear what you need to hear, but we're closed off to the world together, and it's in service of the audience. Getting the best version of two planes flying within centimeters of each other. I would say, like, if you look at the mic on a snare drum, what is the distance between the snare drum and your ears? That is the audience reception of that instrument. But I live within those 3 inches. And I love you enough to say, like, I want to be that precise. And there is that giving away like that. I'm sacrificing the joy of getting the reception of you. Like, it'd be nice to feel the audience at full depth and understanding. But I'd rather it be that much better.
Yeah, exactly.
Than to have you in there.
Yeah, no, I prefer the in-ears. It took a little while, but playing with Scotty Bratcher, we're always on ears, and being able to control your own mix, it gives you a level of like comfort and ease, and just like if you need a change, you don't have to ask somebody, you don't have to wave at a sound guy. It really does like actually allow you to focus on the music more, and it allows you to really hear all of the things that you need to hear, and it just leads to, I think, a like way more musical performance, and you're not blowing your ears out either. You ever stand in front of Scotty Bratcher's guitar amps? Do you
mean all 9 of them? All 9 of the amps he brings out?
Yeah, it is.
100 watt.
At this point, they're on both sides of the stage.
He takes pictures of that storage unit that he has.
It's crazy, man.
And I'm like,
it's crazy.
I've met this guy. His back seems to work fine, but that's not what the storage unit says.
I think he might just be curling over just a little bit more every year. No, I love Scotty, and I love playing with him, but it is like in-ears are nice when you're playing with him, because if you don't have anything in your ears, you might not be able to hear the next day. It's that loud.
But also, there's a level of being in the audience, too, where it's like, that guy rips.
Oh,
His tone is great.
It's perfect.
The show is great.
Yeah.
So I want them to get that experience.
Yeah.
Why would I not say I'm going to do what I need to complement that best by being my own little box in here, you know?
I mean, heck, he's on in-ears too. You know, that's what he wants to hear. And he knows, because he knows. I think you've been in enough professional outfits and you've done the in-ears enough times and you've done the professional productions enough that you go, oh yeah, this is just better. Like if we've got the money for it, if we've got the unit for it, this is what we should do because it's going to just lead to the best product.
Yeah. As we start to wrap this up, really quick, how can someone reach out about taking lessons with you?
You can send me an email. I'll throw my email address out there. It's apsmit33@gmail.com. Or find me on Instagram.
Do you do 33 for Larry Bird?
Kind of, actually, yeah.
I do too.
It was just a number that kept popping up in my life for a while. Like my dad's favorite player was Larry Bird. I had this like Larry Bird VHS that I would watch over and over and over. I love basketball, huge basketball fan. And it was all about those like Celtics teams in the 80s and Bird and stuff. And you watch those highlights, they're freaking crazy. And then I think something as simple as like got to high school and I was in marching band or something, and my like locker number, like my hat box number was 33. It was like this it kept popping up, so I was like, all right, let's go with this number. Nice number.
There's something so beautiful about someone with that much shit talk and that much way of backing it up, where it's like,
dude, it's the best.
there's something really loving about knowing what you're capable of in a way that's not like entirely sure.
Yeah.
At the deepest level of who someone is, you can't be that confident.
Yeah.
But you can wear that perception, and you can show up to bat, and boy, did he do it when he tells somebody, like, I'm just going to shoot with my left hand for the rest of the night.
Tell him where he's going to shoot the shot from and hit it right in their face.
I'm going to beg your coach to have someone come out and guard me while you put your life's work on the line to make sure that you actually do a good job.
Yeah. The work ethic too. I remember watching that, and there'd be clips of like him coming in before and after practice and working and working and working. It's like, yeah, you look at it. I mean, he's just some like big slow white guy. There's no reason he should be doing this to the entire NBA, but he's just that good. He just worked that hard. I think, and Kobe's great for this. A lot of people get inspired by Kobe's work ethic too. I love hearing the stories like him, Jordan, Bird, like how hard they worked to be better than everybody else.
Well, I think what's also really beautiful about basketball is like there's something about the way that it redefines the laws of physics in front of you. Like there's something very odd about putting a ball in a hoop from that kind of distance or in the ways that they do.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to basic mechanics being applied like intellectually and then playing intuitively.
Yeah.
Like there's something really similar to what we do in that where you spend your time, like I'll never forget, Carlos in high school gave me a lesson where he's like, when you play dexterity drills, when you tip your finger too far off the string, you're losing efficiency.
Yep.
To apply efficiency to your instrument is not a chore. It's a favor to your future self to have the craft out of the way and be just in the line of the muse.
Absolutely.
And you look at some of these guys and their mechanics. It's like, why are you going off of that foot? Because I know that mechanic is going to allow me to play intuitively in the air. Like, what are you talking about in the air? Like, I guess that's the moment where it's most like music. It's like, it's floating.
No, I think we used to have this joke. In our first couple years of jazz school, me and all my friends, we played a lot of basketball, tons of basketball, at the gym, in the park, whatever. And we had this joke that I still stand by, and it's like jazz and basketball are the same thing. There's not a whole lot of difference, right? It's like 4 or 5 guys. You got like a general idea of what you're gonna do. You got a basic goal, and then the rest of it is improvised, and you're all relying on everybody's skill set. It's all very, very similar. A lot of parallels. I like throwing that out there every once in a while, though.
Could I try to set up a situation where there's a lot of jazz jams in town? If I can watch a jazz jam where the band faced a screen and watched a basketball game with the sound off.
Oh my gosh.
And just orchestrate around that. And just one guy's the MD for the night. And you can call different people up. And someone can go watch a game with a live jam.
Ooh, that's crazy.
That could be cool.
It might be pretty cool. Yeah, it's kind of like jazz poetry, but jazz basketball. There's a lot of jazz poetry stuff, where somebody reads a poem and you play behind it or whatever. Never thought about that, but that could be really interesting, actually.
You need to have one guy that's calling shots.
Yeah,
to
somebody's got to. You got to have a coach, right?
Dude, that's the great thing too about in ears with a talkback. Like, that's why I have the most fun.
Yep.
Where it's like I'm gonna throw some solo, but then we're gonna modulate, and no one gets any warning.
No.
Because then like you want to feel like you're challenging the people in your band to involve the intellect and then take off intuitively.
Yep.
It's like you only have a couple moments to recalibrate, especially like keys player where it's like, baby, I got a capo. I don't worry about that shit.
Yeah, you got it easy, man.
We do. We really do. Is there anything else you want to plug before we hop off of you?
Check out Hydrophonics. We have an EP out under our own name. You can stream it, but it's better if you buy it. It's on Bandcamp. Check us out. We're playing all over the place. Check out Scotty Bratcher. I love Scotty. I love playing with Scotty. If you don't know who he is, you are missing out. He's one of the best guitar players in the Midwest. Easy. Those are kind of my main two gigs, the two gigs I get most excited about. So yeah, if anybody who's listening, if they want to support what I do, check those guys out. Come see us at a show.
Well, thanks for all you do, brother. I think folks like yourself are the reason that our scene has a chance, because you need to pair great musicians, great band leaders with songwriters that are looking for people to fill in the aspects of their voice where they don't have the vocab or the facility to do so. And they also need folks that are putting other comforts to the side to pursue the thing that they are most meant to do. And I very much see that in your work. So
thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Pimps, players, affiliates, and some folks that might be in the court of law today and or tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. I love you. We'll see you next time.